They locked the doors. They turned off the lights. They said it was just an exam. But she knew better. Because in the silence, someone was still watching. Welcome to She Didn't Scream.
Chapter 5. Sarah's Shadow. It began with the sound of a locker slamming shut. A sharp, metallic clang cleaved through the suffocating silence like a blade. The echo rattled through the deserted school corridor, reverberating off the cold tile floors and faded walls with a violence that felt almost intentional, like a door to something had been closed or opened. But no one was near the lockers. Seraphine jerked awake. Her body spasmed as if pulled by invisible strings. Heart pounding against her rib cage like it was trying to escape. She gasped for air, each breath shallow, dry, as though her lungs were breathing dust instead of oxygen. Her limbs ached, coiled with the stiffness of unintended sleep. She hadn't meant to drift off, not here, not now, not in this place where rest no longer offered refuge, only vulnerability. No one in their right mind would sleep in this school anymore, but exhaustion had folded her in on herself, gentle but relentless, the way wet paper collapses beneath a dripping tap. She had curled into the old wooden desk as if it might shield her from the dark pressing in all around. Now, the room felt colder, denser, as if the act of sleeping had shifted something in the atmosphere, made it notice her. She blinked. Darkness hugged the edges of the room. Dust floated like ash in the stale air, drifting through pale moonlight, filtering in from broken window blinds. Every corner of the classroom felt stretched, warped, as though space had started to bend. The silence was not pure. It was crawling, alive, because the school was never truly empty anymore. Not since that night. Not since her. Each hallway now pulsed with a rhythm that wasn't mechanical. Every closed door seemed to breathe behind its frame, exhaling secrets into the air. It wasn't just a building anymore. It was a body, a wounded, haunted thing. And they weren't trapped inside the school. They were trapped inside it. Then, another slam. Farther off this time, but heavier. And after it, a sound that made Seraphine's scalp tighten and her stomach twist. A dragon noise, wet, measured, as if someone, or something, was pulling a saturated, lifeless sack across the linoleum tiles. A slosh, a scrape, a pause. Then again, she sat bolt upright. The classroom seemed darker now, although the lights were still on, barely. Fluorescence overhead flickered and buzzed, spilling dull light in flickering patches across cracked linoleum and chipped furniture. Her fingers clutched the sides of her desk instinctively. The metal felt cold. Too cold. Across the room, in the shadow-draped back row, Jasmine was still asleep, curled tightly like a child hiding from thunder. Her breathing was shallow, twitching in dreams, lips moving with soft murmurs that didn't form real words. Her hands clutched the photograph. That photograph. The one they'd found behind the broken cabinet, wedged into the wooden frame like someone, or something, had hidden it there for a reason. The photo had once shown a class of smiling students in uniform. But now, the smile of one girl was gone. Her eyes had been scratched out with such viciousness that the paper had nearly torn through, jagged claw marks. Not pen, not ink, not human. Sarah. The name throbbed in Seraphine's mind like a bruise reopened. Once, it had just been a name, one of many. A line on a roster, a student they barely remembered, until she vanished. But it wasn't just a name anymore. Now, it was a wound, and the wound was bleeding. Seraphine clenched her jaw, trying to focus, but memory dripped in like water through cracks in plaster. Unstoppable, inevitable, because she was starting to remember. Sarah had once been one of them, not in the social way, not in the cruel orbit of popularity or whispers or games, but in the literal sense, a student. A name on attendance rolls. A girl in uniform, hunched over textbooks. Smart, too smart, quiet. She never spoke unless spoken to. Her voice, when it came, was soft, gentle, almost breathless. A tone that made teachers smile in admiration and made classmates uncomfortable. People didn't notice her at first, but they started to. Whispers bloomed like mold. Light jokes tossed in the hallway, born from nothing, fed by everything. Creep. Always watching. She's a witch. No one remembered where the rumors began, but everyone remembered the laughter. Seraphine did, and worse, she remembered what came after. Sarah would return from lunch to find her books drenched with orange juice. Her homework stolen, shredded, scattered down the stairwell like confetti. Her locker coated in ketchup packets, smeared until it looked like someone had bled across the metal. No one ever helped her. No one even said anything. And Seraphine? She pressed her palms to her temples, as if she could squeeze the guilt out through her skin. I didn't help her. The thought came in her own voice, sharp and quiet. I watched. But the past didn't stay buried anymore. It was leaking through the seams of her mind like a black mold, sticky, suffocating. It crept beneath her ribs. It breathed against her spine. Just then, the classroom lights flickered and died. All at once, the bulbs didn't dim slowly. They snapped off. An instant. Devouring blackout. A silence filled the room that wasn't just absence of sound. It was presence. A hush with teeth. Then, without anyone touching it, the monitor mounted on the wall buzzed to life. Seraphine flinched. Her breath caught. Her eyes burned with the sudden jolt of static. The screen cracked once, snap, then again. A harsh line of light split it top to bottom. For a moment it buzzed with chaotic white noise, but slowly the static settled, and the image began. Grainy, black and white. Like a lost VHS tape someone had dug up from under rotting floorboards. It showed a classroom. Their classroom. From a year ago. Same layout. Same posters peeling from the walls. Same desks. And in the front row, sitting alone, hands folded in her lap, was Sarah. The camera angle was strange, high, hidden, like something watching from a corner where no one ever looked. Seraphine felt the cold start to seep into her bones. She stepped closer to the screen, each movement slow, deliberate. Like she was being pulled, drawn in. At first, the footage showed nothing unusual, but then, the boys, two of them walking past Sarah's desk, their bodies blurred by motion. One of them held a cup. He dumped it on her lap without a word. Water soaked through her skirt. Laughter. The second boy yanked her chair away just as she was about to sit. Sarah crashed to the floor. More laughter. Then came the girls, clustered near the back, whispering behind their hands, eyes gleaming with mockery. Notes passed beneath desks like daggers, cruel, fast. Seraphine watched it all unfold. Her hands trembled. But the worst part wasn't the cruelty. It was Sarah's silence. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't fight. Her face remained expressionless, but her hands clenched. Her shoulders curled inward. She shrank with every frame as if trying to make herself disappear from a world that refused to let her leave with dignity. Seraphine's hand flew to her mouth, because she remembered now. The stairwell, the bucket of mop water, Sarah's soaked books, the way Sarah had looked up, eyes wide, face pale, lips trembling, and met Seraphine's gaze, begging. And Seraphine had turned away. The screen went black, not a fade, not a soft cinematic end, but an abrupt snuffing, as though someone had torn the feed from existence with a butcher's hand. The silence that followed throbbed like a wound. Seraphine stood frozen, eyes wide, blood roaring in her ears. Then, across the screen, red handwriting bled into view. Not typed, not clean, handwritten, jagged, uneven. Letters scraped across the glass like they'd been carved with a knife. You all watched her die long before she vanished. Seraphine's breath caught, shallow and fragile. Her chest rose and fell with a trembling rhythm. The sentence glared at her, pulsing faintly, almost alive, dripping not with ink, but something thicker, darker. It writhed beneath the screen's cracked surface, and then she saw it. In the dark reflection cast across the glossy monitor surface, she glimpsed herself, but not alone. Just behind her, a second figure, a girl, standing perfectly still. Long, wet hair clung to her shoulders like rotting seaweed. Her eyes were hollow voids, black pits gouged into her face, and her mouth was sewn shut. Not with thread, with something thicker, coarser, like twine soaked in tar. Sarah. Seraphine dared not breathe. The figure in the reflection did not mimic her movements. It didn't even blink, but slowly, so slowly, it tilted its head. And the angle was all wrong. The neck creaked as it bent too far to one side, as though something inside had snapped long ago and never healed right. Then the screen shuddered once more as if reacting to the presence behind her. Another word appeared, oozing across the glass in fresh crimson strokes. Remember. The moment the letters stopped moving, Seraphine spun around, heart hammering hard enough to shake her spine. There was nothing there, no one. But the air had changed. It was no longer just cold. It was rot-filled. A damp, clinging stench hung in the room now, like mold-infested wood left too long in floodwater. Something coppery, thick, metallic, blood, and something else. Smoke, faint, acrid, like the aftertaste of a burned prayer. Her throat tightened. Then she saw it. On the window pane, faint but unmistakable, something had been written. Not from the inside, from outside. A message traced in grime and condensation, with the uneven smudge of a fingertip. She never left. The letters dripped slightly as though still wet. A sudden chill crawled down Seraphine's spine. The temperature had dropped again, sharply. The heat had been stolen from the room, leached into the walls by unseen mouths. Her fingertips began to tremble, not just from fear, but from something deeper. A hollow ache, the cold of memory, of shame. Because she knew now, they had done this, every one of them, even those who had never lifted a hand, never spoken a cruel word, even the ones who had simply looked away. That was enough. Seraphine took a single step back from the dark monitor, the floor groaning beneath her. Her breath misted in the air now, tiny white clouds that vanished too fast. From above, through the ceiling vent, came a whisper, soft, unnatural, drawn out like an exhale across glass. Remember me. Seraphine whirled around, heart a thunderclap in her ears. But again, nothing. No movement, no figure. Only the classroom, dim and watchful. But Jasmine was awake now. She sat motionless at the edge of the room, arms wrapped around her body like a makeshift shield, as if trying to keep herself from unraveling. Her lips were pressed into a tight line, her face bloodless. She said nothing, but she nodded, just once, as if to say, "I heard it too." And then, without warning, the intercom crackled. It didn't emit the usual sterile beep of digital systems. It wheezed, like breath through broken lungs. Then came the sound of a cassette player, slow, warbled, aged. The magnetic tape hissed faintly as it spun. The voice that emerged was neither entirely human nor entirely dead. It was too old to be young, too raw to be calm. A voice from another time. "She came early to clean the boards." A pause, just long enough to feel like someone remembering the words with sorrow. "They laughed when she spilled the chalk water." The voice was thin, like it came from under the floorboards, or 1,000 miles away. But it was here. "She cried in the stairwell while they copied her homework." Another pause, a deeper one. The silence hung in the air like noose rope. "She stopped speaking on February 22nd. She disappeared on March 14th. A breath. Then, "Now, she speaks again." Seraphine's lips parted, but no sound came. The classroom walls seemed to close in, narrowing, warping. Even the corners of the ceiling darkened. The air itself vibrated now, as though the school had begun to listen. The monitor buzzed again. But this time, it didn't show the past. This was live. The feed trembled for a moment, then stabilized. A new location, the library, or what was left of it. Shelves had been overturned, tables broken, chairs splayed like corpses mid-fall. Books littered the floor in mutilated piles, pages torn, spines snapped. The wreckage looked recent, like a hurricane had passed through. Or something angry, something deliberate. Someone moved through the stacks, just at the edge of the frame, never fully visible. A flicker of motion, hair, a shoulder, the corner of a skirt. Then, a girl stepped into view, not running, not hiding, standing, still, centered in the frame. Surrounded by a halo of ruined books, everyone open to a page defiled by red ink, circles, scribbled names, photos scratched out. The room dimmed, Seraphine's throat closed. The girl turned, and there she was, Sarah, not as a phantom, not as the stitched-lipped thing behind the glass, but as she had been, almost. Her skin was pale but smooth. Her eyes, still hollow, blinked slowly. Her uniform looked almost normal, except for the small fractures that spiderwebbed across her cheeks, like her face was made of porcelain straining to remain whole. She moved. She breathed. "She's..." Jasmine gasped, voice cracking. "Still here?" The feed trembled. Static flickered. Then, Sarah lifted her hand. One pale finger rose and pointed, not at the camera, past it, at the wall behind her. There, pinned with a long, rust-colored blade, was a photo. Seraphine's. A timer appeared at the bottom of the feed, counting down from 60. A familiar voice whispered through the speaker now. No longer just narration. It was a verdict. "Guilt demands blood." Seraphine staggered backward, her legs buckled slightly, knees locking to keep her upright. The pressure in her skull was growing, like her thoughts were pressing against the inside of her skull, trying to escape. Jasmine grabbed her arm. "Seraphine, we have to run." But outside the classroom, the world had changed. The hallway lights were dead. The open doors from earlier were now shut, sealed with a groan of warped metal. A low hum began to build in the walls. Not electricity, vibration. Like something huge had stirred beneath the foundation. The school was awakening, and it was hungry. The timer on the feed hit 30. Then movement in the frame. Behind Sarah, a figure, not a ghost, a person, someone alive, male, tall, wearing a school uniform. But before his face came into view, the feed snapped to static, and another message replaced it, flickering, glitching, reversed. She wasn't alone. The screen blinked off. Blackness returned. Then, behind Seraphine, a locker door slammed open. The locker door creaked open, not with the violence of a jump scare or the thunderclap of rage. No, it was slow, deliberate. The hinges groaned like bones grinding in their sockets, metal rasping against rusted metal. It opened inch by inch, as if pulled by a hand from the other side, one that had no urgency, only certainty. The sound scraped its way down the hallway, echoing and folding into itself, a metallic wheeze that grated on the teeth and made Seraphine's spine curl inward. She stood rooted in place. Her body refused to respond. A silent command held her still. Jasmine reached out, her fingers trembling, and gently touched Seraphine's shoulder. The contact felt distant, like a ghost brushing past. Seraphine didn't react. Her breath was locked in her chest. Her eyes were transfixed. She wasn't staring at the door itself. She was staring at what was inside. There was no body, no monster, no violent flurry of movement. There was only a mirror. Not a full mirror, just a shard. Jagged, crooked, no wider than a handspan. It leaned against the back wall of the locker, its broken edges catching the flickering hallway light like teeth. The darkness around it didn't reflect. It absorbed. Every shadow deepened in that narrow void, pulling in light like water down a drain. Seraphine took a step forward. Each footfall sounded wrong, muffled, as though she was walking across a floor that had grown soft, spongy. The corridor seemed to tighten around her, walls drawing inward like a throat preparing to swallow. The tiles underfoot creaked and pulsed faintly, as if they too had begun to breathe. Above her, the fluorescent lights buzzed, coughing out dim light in erratic spasms. One flickered so rapidly it gave the illusion of motion, like the hallway was twitching. The air had taken on a new scent now, mildew, dust, and something worse. Old breath, the stench of forgotten things. Seraphine knelt before the locker, her muscles stiff from cold or fear, or both. The shard of mirror gleamed softly. She reached out, hesitant fingers brushing the frame as if expecting it to burn. Then she saw it. Her reflection blinked back, but it wasn't her. The figure in the glass looked like her at first glance, but the hair was too long, damp, hanging like ropes. The skin was paler, bruised beneath the eyes, stretched tight across cheekbones, and the lips were stitched. Seraphine's mouth parted, but no sound came. It was her, Sarah. And in that moment they simply stared at one another. Two girls, two timelines connected by glass and guilt. The fear inside Seraphine coiled tighter, an ache beneath her ribs. But layered beneath it now was something more terrible. Recognition. Guilt. Because it was returning. Piece by piece. Flash. The stairwell. A boy dumping mop water over Sarah's open books. The pages turned black with filth. Sarah stood in the center of it, clutching her soaked school bag. Seraphine stood at the top of the stairs, watching. She had said nothing. A teacher passed. Sarah turned, eyes wide, silently pleading. Seraphine looked away. Flash. A group chat. Phones glowing under blankets. Screens filled with mocking texts. "Let's not invite her again." "She gives me the creeps." Seraphine hadn't typed the cruelest message. Just an emoji, a laughing face. It was enough. Flash. An empty desk. No one sitting there anymore. No one asked why. Not really. In the mirror, Sarah's reflection tilted its head, slowly, as though listening. Not to sound, but to memory. Seraphine's thoughts weren't safe anymore. They were being read, inhaled, swallowed. Then Sarah lifted a hand. Her fingers were pale, filthy. Her nails cracked and blackened. She reached forward, slow and steady, toward the inside of the glass, and pressed her hand flat against the mirror. The glass rippled. Seraphine gasped and stumbled back. Her breath came sharp and fast, fogging the air before her. The ripple didn't stop. The mirror's surface quivered like water, the image of Sarah's hand distorting with each tremor, and yet it held. No shattering, no breaking. Sarah's hand moved in sync with Seraphine's retreat, matching her, mirroring her, begging, or maybe asking to be let out. Then the voice came again, but this time not from a single direction. It came from everywhere, from the ceiling vents, from beneath the floor, from the lockers and walls and desks, every speaker, every pipe. The building itself spoke. The voice was high, small, wounded. "You forgot me." The mirror vibrated. "You watched me fall." Seraphine dropped to her knees. Her limbs shook uncontrollably. Her eyes stung. She whispered, "I'm sorry." But the voice did not stop. "Now you will see what I saw." A crack split through the glass. Hairline, thin, then another, then more. They spread like frost veins on ice, from Sarah's hand outward, jagged, violent, alive. Sarah's smile changed. It twisted. Then her stitched lips tore open, not gently, not cleanly. It was a rending, a tearing. Flesh and thread parting in a burst of black-red ruin. The sound that escaped was not a voice. It was a roar, a static scream, a chorus of voices buried in earth and memory. Deep, bone deep. Too many to count. Some begged, some blamed, some simply wept. The mirror shattered inward. Glass flew into the locker. The scream cut out. The lights died. Blackness swept over them. Total, crushing. And then, a flash of red. Not from a light, from a mirror, a new one. Mounted above the old water fountain at the far end of the corridor. Its surface glowed, eerie and soft, like a memory made visible, drawn by forces older than language. Seraphine stumbled toward it, weak-kneed and breathless. Inside, a scene unfolded. Not present, past, a classroom, the same one, but changed. Sarah stood in front of the chalkboard, face streaked with tears, her uniform torn, eyes red and wide, and behind her, Seraphine, watching, doing nothing. The mirror blinked, shifted. Now Seraphine stood alone, and behind her, Sarah, approaching, not in the hallway, but through the mirror, through a space that shouldn't exist. Step by step. Sarah leaned forward. Her breath fogged the glass. "Then," she whispered, "you're in my place now." A hand grabbed Seraphine's shoulder. From behind, she screamed.